There's a fault line known as the Newport-Inglewood Fault. According to the California Department of Conservation, the Newport-Inglewood Fault extends on land for about 46 miles from Culver City to Newport Beach, and from there continues into the Pacific Ocean where it joins the Rose Canyon Fault that runs closer to San Diego into the ocean. In our area, LA County, the line of hills that stretch from Signal Hill to Culver City are the surface level extensions of that fault. That's where you can see the fault.
That's why those hills are there.
Exactly. I got scared. I'm like, oh no, those are dangerous.
Don't shake them. Don't kick them.
For all the nerds out there who understand this part of the Newport-Inglewood Fault, it is a right lateral strike-slip fault with a slip rate of 0.02 inches per year. Wow. Oh, man. Is that a slip rate?
Turn the kiss cam on. I'd like to kiss that fault. Sexy.
I was watching a video. I watched a lot of videos trying to understand earthquakes better. There's a guy with Cheesewood at Graham Crackers that breaks it down pretty good, but I still like, but how many layers of earth are there?
But how many bites until we're all destroyed?
Right lateral, I guess they move in opposite directions, but they're kind of parallel to each other, like they slide against each other. And people will like describe earthquakes and everyone's
They're
like,
bumping uglies? You're saying
are they cousins? What's the expression I'm forgetting?
I think we should do a DNA test on those fault lines.
They're related. On March 10th, 1933, at 5:54 p.m., 3 miles off the coast of Huntington Beach and about 8 miles below the ocean, the deep part of the ocean.
Robert Shaw's back.
The Newport-Inglewood fault line ruptured, causing a 6.4 magnitude quake. Lots of areas were hit hard by this. Culver City, Inglewood, Gardena, Compton, Signal Hill, Seal Beach, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Costa Mesa, Anaheim, Santa Ana, and Fullerton. But the brunt of the quake landed on the lap of Long Beach. This is a story of the 1933 Long Beach earthquake. For this, I consulted loads of newspaper articles, KCET, the California Conservation, and a book by Tom Grobatti called Long Beach Chronicles from Pioneers to the 1933 Earthquake. Ends there. So the morning of Friday, March 10th, 1933, in Long Beach,
March 10th, that's coming up 9 days after this.
I thought about that. I'm like, I wonder if it's going to happen again, because we evoked it. We talked about it.
We did the ritual.
I looked up that article in KCET. That article, like I was saying, March 10th was going to be a big deal in Long Beach. Was going to be a
Long Guido was
going to be a big deal in Long Beach. Jesus Christ.
You know it's called Long Beach, right?
Oh no.
Long Beach.
My research all wrong. I messed up again.
This takes place in a different part of the world, in Long Beach.
Okay. It was going to be a big deal because they were 2 days deep into the USS Constitution, a.k.a. Old Ironsides.
I thought you were going to say we were 2 days deep into the biggest Jenga competition.
They haven't knocked it down yet. It's literally just 4 more Jenga.
4 more Jenga.
So there was a ship, Old Ironsides, the USS Constitution, a ship that was launched to sea when Washington was president. This ship was docked at Long Beach Inner Harbor. So
wait a minute, isn't that still there? What's the one? No, that's the Iowa.
Yeah, that's Iowa.
Okay,
that was not launched when Washington was the president.
Old Ironsides? That's literally made of
steel,
iron. Yeah. This certainly was the land of good and plenty, or whatever they called it.
They used all the steel they could to make one ship. No bullets, no guns.
We shoot
no
this
bridges.
at them.
Today was the day that all the school kids, thousands as said, got a field trip to see Old Ironside. Almost all the kids came out and donated. Hello.
I'm Old Ironside. Those are our voices.
Prepare to be boarded, said all the kids in Long Beach. So all the kids came out and they all donated pennies towards the ship's refurbishment.
Which were also made of iron.
Yeah, also you had to swallow them. I don't know what the deal was.
Ironside wants more iron. Smelt it down for our iron god. Old Copperside.
Yeah.
I think I've been on that. That's now in Boston Harbor, I think.
Probably, yeah.
I think I've been on Old Ironsides.
And you donated a penny?
No, I took a penny. They say take a penny, leave a penny. I took the whole boat.
$9,000. My pants were so heavy.
I think I hit my head on below deck.
And you woke up and it was 1951.
I don't think I had that same thought.
And I also spoke French I had a French accent like Fred Flintstone every time he hit his head. And I also had amnesia. You hit your head on
blue.
You hit your head on Old Ironside?
No, it was a wooden part of Old Ironside,
okay.
so it wasn't that. No, I don't mean to pull back the curtain. It's made of wood. He's completely wooden. I think he's called Ironside because they shot him so much. It's like lead belly. His belly's not made of lead. He has a piece of lead in his belly.
What? I can't be in his fan club anymore. I thought this was something else. So whether the kids liked the ship or understood its historic qualities or not did not matter. Many of the kids of Long Beach and the surrounding areas were happy that it was just a field trip day. So it was like already a good day to start. In 1933, Long Beach was a sleepy little oceanside town. It was growing, but still small, with a population of about 157,000 people. It was just like 30 square miles at the time. There were like main streets and piers to the north and south, but Long Beach seemed to just have like long roads of nothing, like agricultural.
That was the alternate name.
No, it's gonna make people not want to move here. A lot of farm.
And they never did.
Still empty to this day. Don't check it out. Please don't bother the people of Long Beach. Lots of like farmland and agricultural areas. Less than half the roads at the time were paved. Long Beach had 13 banks, about 28 schools, and Long Beach had 5 hospitals with 492 beds altogether, which on an average day was more than enough. But March 10th was not going to be an average day. It was late in the day already, coming close to 6 p.m. Kids were home from school. Parents were driving home or stopped at supermarkets, or they were home cooking. Some were still at work. It was going to be a quiet, eventless night. But 5:54 hit, and the Newport-Inglewood fault line ruptured. The 6.4 magnitude earthquake lasted, most will say, like about 10 to 11 seconds.
You want to count them out? Like,
You ready to count it
Let's
out?
count out this is how long. Imagine shaking for this long. I'm
Ready.
going to look at my watch.
Okay.
You want me to count? You want to look at my watch?
You count.
Okay.
I'll count for yours, you count for mine.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's shaking.
That's
You're shaking that entire time.
That is a 6.4 earthquake shaking for 10 seconds.
Imagine somebody shaking your Model T for that long.
Your limo for that long.
Imagine they're all trying to get your autograph. So what does Old Ironside have to do with this? Was that just context?
It was context for things that were that was happening that day.
Okay.
So it was
So
just
Old
like,
Ironside felt this.
funny enough, the next day split. Was like it was supposed to be for 10 days.
No thanks.
3 days into it was like, ugh, boy.
I know I'm a boat and this probably doesn't
Didn't
affect me.
at
but-
all. A little splish splash.
See you in Boston? Watch your head.
Yeah, it was just context for like the kind of mood of the day.
Okay. It was a field trip day.
In that 10 to 11 seconds, absolute chaos. Here are some of the stories from Long Beach Chronicles. A man named James Brody, the assistant manager of the Imperial Theater, which was on Ocean Boulevard near Long Beach Boulevard, ran out to calm the crowd inside the movie theater. He was on stage and in those 10 seconds managed to clear out the audience, getting them to stay calm and exit safely. He made sure everyone was safe and it was the last to leave. He was killed by a falling canopy. He was
Whoa.
29 years old.
Like a marquee.
I think like
almost?
I don't
Oh
know
my
if it's a
God.
marquee or an awning.
Either way.
Either way, he did not make it through that one.
Yeesh.
On 4th Street, Frederick
Hero.
absolute hero.
Yeah.
Saved all those people in the theater. On 4th Street, Frederick Borum Cole, who was 61, grabbed his granddaughter and wrapped her in his arms during the quake. They were found under a pile of rubble that used to be their house. She lived, he didn't. A 3-year-old girl, Dolores Marie Mitchell, was killed, crushed to death on her stairway to her house on Anaheim Street. On Ocean Boulevard, there was a brick building that was a home to a poultry shop run by Vera Rogers and her husband. When the S word hit the F word, she fled the shop and then she ran
Is
back.
that she fled? When
You figured it out.
she fled, he fled.
So she runs outside, and then she remembers, "Oh, my husband's in there." She goes back in to save him. They made it out safely, but outside was the problem. It rained bricks down on them, and the whole building crumbled, and they both died on the sidewalk. A high schooler, Tommy Guillermo, who was 16, died when the roof of the locker room that he was in at San Pedro High School collapsed on him. There are 51 stories like this. 51 stories
51
in Long
people
Beach.
die, or how many?
120 deaths altogether, all over because of the earthquake. But in Long Beach, there was 51. That's where they got the worst. In Compton, also saw a lot of damage. They got about 17 deaths there. Part of the issue with Compton was that much of the area sat on ancient water-saturated sediments deposited by overflows from the Alley River. So there's just like, you're just on...
Liquefaction. I talk about that
Okay.
a little bit.
Remember liquefaction,
Remember
but basically
liquefaction. That's the word of the day.
So it was 1933, and this was the first truly big earthquake of modern Los Angeles. And let me tell you, they were not ready for it.
No.
Building codes at the time did not factor into earthquakes, really. So many buildings were made out of bricks with wooden beams and cheaply made walls. So when that...
Not even like plastered together.
I know, it's
stacks of bricks.
just like hope keeping them together. So when a 6.4 shaker hit, which is not strong, it's strong but not devastating,
Yeah.
you know, everything came apart. If you managed to walk away from the 11-second initial hit, you had 34 more aftershocks to shake your house loose from its foundation. The first one hit at 6:09, 6:10, 6:12, 6:15, all the way to midnight. There's a story in the Alley Times where a man recalls going to his family's mortuary, and during the cleanup, there was an aftershock, and it shook the sign loose, and it fell and crushed their mechanic's foot off and pretty much severed it.
Ew.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say like all the coffins opened up.
Yeah, all the schools pretty much suffered significant damage. There's a photo of Franklin Junior High pretty much collapsed. The dome at Poly High crashed to the main hallway. Jefferson High totally caved and collapsed and burst into flames. They said if this had struck during school hours, the casualty would have been in the thousands. 120 schools in and around Long Beach were damaged, and 70 of which were completely destroyed. Balconies and overhangs just flung off of their structures. Pillars that were installed to add support just buckled and allowed roofs to collapse. The entire northwest corner of the Ebal Club was in rubble.
what?
The Ebal Club, which is
Oh, like Ebel?
Oh, is it Ebel?
The thing that's downtown?
Yeah,
Ebel?
yeah. The Long Beach chapter of the Ebel Club. Thank you.
Ebel? I don't know. Could be Ebel. Is it a Patreon person? Because if so, then we're, then we're probably mispronouncing it.
They should give us money to mispronounce it. Ebel, we're looking at you. The Bank of America and the post office on 7th and Redondo completely came down. Fires erupted all over the city, but the fire department would be a little late because the main station had been destroyed during the quake. All over the area, streets were filled with debris and telephone poles. Telephone poles were just knocked down and in the street. Telephone lines were out all over the city. Cars were buried. There was no electricity. A hero of the city was a gas company employee who shut off the gas lines during the quake and probably saved so many lives. After the
And
quake,
how was he punished by the earthquake like all the other heroes were?
he fell into a big hole.
He survived it all, but he was the final victim of Old Ironside.
He jumped on the ship and the ship sank. The ghost of Washington shot him. Some rusty old bullet from a gun that only shot one bullet. It was shot more powder
There's
than
a wooden
bullet.
bullet that never lied. His aim was true.
1,831 homes were destroyed. 21,000 homes were damaged. Cumulatively, the 11-second earthquake caused over $50 million in damages. $50 million during the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Which
That's
was
$50
not
million
the time.
nobody had.
Ooh, geez. Ooh, boy. I hope you guys living around a
Hope
lot
we
of
win
brick.
World War II.
I hope, which you'll find out in a couple of years what that's about.
Better get to Hitler's eagle nest first to steal those silverware. We got to make some money.
Rumors started to spread during the chaos. People were hearing stories that Point Furman in Pedro, which we talked about in the Haunted episode, had crumbled and fallen into the sea. Not true. People were hearing that Catalina disappeared into the rumble of the ocean. Not true. News was spreading that a tidal wave was on its way, and some people even later were like, I heard Long Beach isn't even there anymore.
And they couldn't prove it.
You want to go to Long Beach? I don't have a boat. The earthquake shattered people's lives, but luckily help was on the way. The man in charge was LA County Sheriff Eugene Bizcaliz. Bizcaliz.
Biz what?
Bizcaliz. Bizcaliz.
How do you spell it?
Biscailuz. I don't know. Okay, I read names from 1933, and I'm supposed to know how to pronounce them. I'm sorry.
I'm supposed to treat them with humanity?
Eugene Bizcaliz was on the way. Only a few years earlier, Bizcaliz developed a new division of law enforcement known as the California Highway Patrol. He also had a long, interesting family tree that involves a mission soldier for the San Gabriel mission. We won't hold that against him. Bizcaliz was getting word about how bad the damage was in South LA, in particular Long Beach, but he couldn't reach anyone for comment. All the telephone lines were down, so he didn't really know what to do.
I mean, it's not that far in 1933.
It's really
you
not.
could drive there.
Anyways,
I bet a giant caterpillar destroyed it.
I heard that Catalina is now on top of Long Beach.
I think we're New York now. I better retire.
So he contacted his pilot friend, a man named C.N. James, or Jimmy James, who was vice president of operations and an early day pilot for Western Air Express, which is now Delta Airlines. James and a deputy sheriff hop in an open cockpit plane to fly over the area and assess the damage. And surprisingly, he commented there was little to no fog set in Long Beach, which was an anomaly apparently. They were able to get as low as 100 feet off the ground, and they could see bodies being collected at service stations. They saw a couple of small fires blazing, and the plane had no radio, so he had to drive the plane. He had to fly the plane to meet Bizcaliz at the Burbank airport, and then reported what he saw there.
Did they know what earthquakes were?
You know, from the amount of earthquakes that happened, I don't think they really did.
It's almost like they're treating it like a nuclear, not that they knew what that was either,
Yeah.
but like a nuclear bomb had just gone off. They're like, we can't go there. We'll get earthquake poisoning.
This was the first big one. Like, there had been other
Yeah.
ones, but like this was the first
So
devastating one.
did they think like, we can't walk on it, it's gonna crumble?
It's 1933. How many people had cars? Were they going to take a trolley over there?
You'd think the sheriff has a car.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, I mean the
Take
30s.
a paddy wagon over.
Maybe Mary Pickford could pick me up in her
Yeah.
sedan.
Have
Honestly-
Amelia Earhart fly you.
Yeah, they must
She
have
might
had.
gone already.
Yeah, I'm like trying to think of the history of cars and where they landed in the 30s, and I can only think of jalopies full of. It looked like the Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah, the Keystone cops were sent in to survey the damage.
They had cars, but I think they were smuggling booze with Tommy guns. I'm trying to think of like where we were in the 30s and where cars were. I don't know why he didn't drive over there, but he had a plane go over to assess the damage. Bizcaliz was so impressed with the help that James was able to give him in this that he developed a system of disaster aid with private pilots flying their own planes to help in search and rescue, and later became the Aero Bureau, which is an awful name. So hard to say. Red Cross chapters in the LA area rushed to the rescue with the help of the Army and the Navy, and they were able to start putting relief tents and beddings for thousands
Send in Old Ironside.
We need help from a boat from 1764.
Fight thunder with thunder. Shoot the fault line.
So first aid stations were established because of the Red Cross all over Long Beach and Compton. They were able to become basically like, because so many hospitals were damaged, they became like where all the emergency and first aid areas were. In Compton, a first aid station was set up with 689 nurses. In Long Beach with a and the wartime nurses, so like dresses and heels, and you're like, are you sure you should be? Do you want PJs on? Because that seems very uncomfortable.
Keep her away from me. She doesn't have lipstick on. She's not rude.
It's not form fitting enough. Stay away from me. You're supposed to inspire hope.
Have a milkshake and then get back over here, skinny. Well, you know, my grandma was a nurse. She was a nurse in the 30s.
Oh, yeah?
In like the late 30s at Bellevue in New York City, and the whole thing was like, you've got to look good. You gotta weigh this amount of like she
like she works one of the counters at
like
Macy's.
at Clinique counter, but like they would send her, you got to go down to the cafeteria and you've got to drink this milkshake because you're not full-bodied enough.
Oh my
It
God.
was disgusting. Anyway,
I love stories about your grandma.
And
she
then-
bullied Chuck McCann at the fighting.
well, I've
the
told you that
Nazis.
she gave Louis Armstrong a shot in the butt, right?
No, you did tell me that.
She gave Louis Armstrong he came in for some shot and she gave it to him in the butt.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, she said he was like pretending to play the trumpet.
I was about to ask if he started scatting.
Yeah. Doobadoo,
Whoa!
whoa!
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, skra-ba-ba. The only man who sounds the same when he's playing trumpet and singing. Back to the disaster. Can we get back to that?
Yeah, it was really a disaster. It was for my grandma. They didn't have strawberry.
I gotta gain weight on vanilla. They'll know. The men will know. In Long Beach and the surrounding areas, 30 mass feeding stations were arranged by the Red Cross, set up to feed 83,000 people daily. The LA chapter of the Red Cross set up information stations to connect friends and relatives who lost communication. So, like, if you show up, like, I don't know where my buddy Bob is, you can go to the station, which is incredibly helpful at the time. They were also able to raise...
Use Facebook. Did they check it on Facebook?
You can Google his whereabouts, right? You can follow him on a map, which is terrific. They were also able to raise over $400,000 for the relief effort to go towards repairing homes and businesses. Within a few days, schools were being rebuilt, and classes for most schools, elementary schools to college, were being held in tents. Some high school students held classes on bleachers. Church services were held in parks. The post office became an outdoor post office on 7th near American Avenue. Fire stations were reestablished in other buildings. The Long Beach Public Library brought reading materials to people camping in Lincoln Park. Do you have anything else? No.
I don't want to pay the fine on this book.
We'll tally it up with the effort, okay? Just read the book.
Bill it to the Red Cross.
A few weeks later, homes and businesses were inspected for safety, and people that had any property standing were allowed to re-enter. Congress was able to give $500 million in the form of low-interest loans to help in the relief. March 26, 16 days later, a memorial was held in Bixby Park for the 51 residents of Long Beach who died. Over 15,000 people gathered there to pay their respects. There are a few interesting things that came out of the Long Beach earthquake of 1933.
Snoop Dogg.
First and least importantly, the Long Beach earthquake was the first earthquake recorded by the new technology accelerographs, which is a recorder that reads the acceleration of the ground. Second, when the quake was happening, it was felt all over LA. Pasadena shook some, and out of a building at Caltech ran a guy carrying all of his gear. He was not running out of the building because of fear. This man was Charles Richter.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it was...
Charles Thomas?
No, JPL.
Touch Myself in the Bushes?
Yeah, Jim Parsons.
Yeah.
Jack Parsons.
Jack Parsons,
Jim
yeah.
Parsons. Bazinga, bazinga, bazinga. Jack Parsons went running out, horny as ever, shaking alive.
It's happening! I touched
get
myself
it.
hard enough that it's happening!
Really? Charles Richter.
Charles Richter ran outside. Also known, for anybody who doesn't know, the man behind the Richter scale, which is now how we measure the strength of earthquakes.
Wow.
Charles Richter, also known as the master
He
interpreter
was
of
yelling,
earthquakes.
This is a 6.4. This is a 6.4.
Is it rolling or is it bouncing? Which is all these nerds.
The same thing Jack Parsons was yelling.
He was at Caltech getting his PhD in physics at the time. Something like 2 years later, him and a guy named Benno Gutenberg developed the Richter scale. But here's another thing. Richter's running out.
It'd be about Snoop Dogg.
Someone very similar to Snoop Dogg. Richter runs out of the building at Caltech, probably giddy with excitement. And whose path does he cross? But a visiting speaker at Caltech, Albert Einstein, who apparently says didn't even feel it because he was so involved in the discussion with a colleague.
I thought they were both running out, and he's like, E equals
feel
MC
it?
squares, 6.4 on a Richter scale. Two huge scientific advancements crossing each other.
I imagine Richter out, a box full of like beakers and like a ball that rolls a lot. He's like, oh boy, are you Albert Einstein? Oh boy, just like runs right past him. I was so
God,
excited.
Albert Einstein was here to feel it.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's probably
and
the
he
same.
didn't. He was here
This
to feel
was
it.
for you, Albert.
Yeah.
We arranged this for you. That was probably the same trip he was here that he was there at the premiere of City Lights or whatever. That's so weird. Big
wanted-
trip for Albert Einstein. He went back to Switzerland. I had the most authentic LA experience. I tried tacos. I had an earthquake. And I saw a premiere of a movie.
That's just some good LA lore for anybody out there who likes that stuff like I do.
That's so weird.
The truly great thing to come out of the 1933 quake was the California Field Act, named after Assemblyman Don Field. The Field Act upgraded seismic safety standards for schools throughout California and required many other jurisdictions to require masonry reinforcement. Safety codes are now implemented into the design of schools and other buildings. It's also called for continual inspections and oversights. And although many people find these restrictions incredibly strict, after reading about entire schools collapsing,
They're not relustrins. Get real, people.
do me a favor. Anyone who thinks it's too strict, look at a photo of a school that's knocked down, and knowing that it happened at 554 and not 254, and be
Yeah.
like, maybe we need those.
And let's see in the next story how well those restrictions held up.
Yeah. In 1933, the Long Beach earthquake that affected so much of South LA was a wake-up call to our city that we were not ready for seismic activity. If you're looking at an example of what would happen to LA if no preparation or even understanding of the danger we were in Southern California, 1933 quake is a perfect one to see how unprepared we were and how unaware of it we were.
How naive we were and how prepared we are now. And also in the 90s. And also in whatever the next one you're about to be talking about.